Welcome to the Story Lab. Today we return to the DC Universe to talk about Smallville. It has been 20 years since the end of the TV series Smallville, that ran for 10 seasons and told the story of Clark Kent growing up and becoming Superman. The series ended the moment Clark first put on the red and blue outfit, and thus we never really got to see this version of Superman. But what if we did? What if the last episode was not the last, and there was a Smallville movie after? That is what we look at today, a Smallville movie. Let's dive right in. The creators and actors of the show have made it very clear that they never wanted to make a Superman show, or movie for that matter, but a show about Clark Kent and the other people of Smallville. In our outline for a movie, we shall follow this same principle even if we do have an active Superman and evil Lex Luthor, etc. Smallville was always a story about relationships, motivation, secrets, family, etc. more than it was about the action sequences. This is another aspect we shall keep throughout our new movie. Here is where the Smallville series left us off after its 10-season run. Clark Kent has revealed himself to the world as Superman. He is the leader of a team of superheroes operating from the Watchtower. Privately, he works as a news reporter at the Daily Planet alongside his wife Lois Lane, who is one of the few people who knows Clark's secret. Others that do know are the other superheroes, Oliver Queen's wife Chloe Sullivan, who used to run the Watchtower, as well as some people from the town where Clark grew up in, his mother, his childhood best friend Pete Ross and his first love Lana Lang. Clark has not seen Ross or Lang for a long time. In the case of Lana, this is actually a very good thing. For years Lana had been wearing skinsuit of kryptonite, which while giving superpowers to humans is deadly to Clark's alien physiology. The biggest enemy of Clark is Lex Luthor. The two used to be best friends, but because of Lex's questionable upbringing and his continued attempts to find out Clark's secret, he had turned evil. Lex had actually discovered Clark's secret before and had died, but both had since been undone by the actions of Lex's father and his former protege. Thus, Lex remembers nothing about his life in Smallville nor about Clark Kent. And these are the ingredients that we want to use for our movie. Not a Superman movie, a Clark Kent-centered movie. But have classic Superman elements such as truth, justice and Lex Luthor using kryptonite against Superman, Clark and Lois trying to hide his secret identity, etc. Focus on all the characters from the series. Make a story about relationships and family as well as about action and adventure. The plot should happen primarily in Smallville. This should not be a Metropolis movie. Let's put them in and start the experiment. The analysis is about to be complete. Here we go. Let's look at the results. The movie opens with exactly the picture that we never saw in the TV series, Clark Kent in his full Superman outfit, fighting bad guys in Metropolis. At first it seems as if Clark is just fighting regular goons, but after a while we notice that it is actually a collection of Lex bots and kryptonite-armed henchmen of Lex Luthor. While Superman's fight continues, we switch over to a new reporter, Lois Lane, who outlines how the city and its inhabitants are not happy about the President of the United States' continuous attempts at getting rid of Superman, citing the destruction caused by the super fight, that only Superman was cleaning up, etc. etc. We see Lex watching the news reel and his PR assistant being concerned about it. But Lex is not. The operations in Metropolis, while very much orchestrated by him and using his tech, were not public-led by Luthor but by an allegedly Rouge underling of him. In fact, Lex was not even in Metropolis, he was in Smallville, residing in his old villa, that he had rebuilt stone by stone. We learn that Lex has returned there in the hopes of regaining his lost memories of some 30 years of life. He had read and heard about the events, his marriage to Alana Lang, his friendship with a local farmer's boy named Clark, etc. But he could not feel it himself. As the fight in Metropolis starts to turn decidedly in Superman's favor, the man in charge of the operation calls upon Lex to give him more support. Lex thinks about this for a while and decides to take matters into his own hands instead. He walks up to a wall, that hides a secret vault and takes a full-on Lex suit out of it, armed with many kryptonite-based weapons. Putting on the suit, Lex flies over to Metropolis and attacks Superman. The hero is quite surprised by the appearance of this much superior foe. A big battle occurs, where Superman keeps defending himself against the attacks of Lex, and remains unharmed. But Lex would not have been Lex if he had not planned a second strike. After getting Clark into a favorable position, he fires on him darts of concentrated blue kryptonite. At the same time, Clark destroys the Lex suit with his vision. Both crash to the ground and neither gets the chance to see the other one disappear. Despite falling from considerable height, Lex is actually totally okay. His suit had possessed several airbag capabilities. His reputation was more at risk, so he has the PR assistant spin a story about his subordinate stealing the super suit and losing his life while fighting Superman. Annoyed with the fact that Superman is seemingly untouchable, Lex decides to change his plans for his time at Smallville. Instead of only searching for memories, he would now also search for kryptonite, dig it all up, no matter how much land he had to steal to do so. What Lex doesn't know is that he actually did damage Superman quite severely. Having been shot with blue kryptonite, Clark's powers were completely disabled. He was essentially a human now. He had survived the fall but was hurt and stuck wearing his super suit, which he could not easily change off without super speed. With considerable effort he manages to make it back to his and Lois' apartment. Lois herself arrives only a bit later asking what had happened. Together they take out the darts, but Clark's powers still don't return. Concerned, the two travel to the Watchtower, where Clark is subjected to extensive examinations. Finally, they discover that some of the blue kryptonite had made it into his bloodstream. Clark is concerned that his powers would be gone forever, but he was assured that the foreign element would leave his system soon enough and that his powers would slowly return over the next few days. Given that Superman was now grounded, Clark and Lois decide to have a quiet week, while telling everyone that Superman had to go off-world to take care of a couple of things. But they had made their calculations without Lex Luthor. Within a day the news reaches them that Lex was forcefully removing farmers and families in Smallville and digging for the rich reservoir of kryptonite beneath it. Unable to just ignore these events, the duo of reporters, together with young Jimmy Olsen, travels to Smallville to write a hit piece on the shady businessman. Thus, the action returns to Smallville, where we meet a few familiar places and faces, chief among them, Pete Ross, who has recently become the mayor of Smallville. Clark begins his investigation by visiting Lex in his manor, an eerily familiar sight to any who watched the TV series. At first it actually seems like the two could be friends again. Lex presents himself overly friendly towards Clark, trying to get information from him about their previous friendship that he did not remember. But Clark is deliberately cryptic, prompting Lex to give up the charade and simply kick the reporter out of his house. In the meantime, Lois was watching a protest of a group of farmers that is being forced of their land by Lex workers. When the enforcers get physical, Lois and a few neighbors intervene, but all too quickly they face a much superior foe, Lexbots. Clark arrives to see Lois in trouble, but knows that he cannot do anything against it, because he has no powers. To his surprise, someone else appears and takes out the robots, chasing the enforcers away, someone with super strength and speed. It was Lana Lang. There is a very awkward reunion. Lana had come to Smallville, thinking that Superman was off-world, and was surprised to find Clark here. At the same time, they were all glad to see her and to have a superpowered individual with them. Now with Lana in the team, our heroes are bold enough to enter Lex's new complex and try to find out what he has planned with all the kryptonite. We get a stealthy sneak and detective work segment of the movie. Lana is an important asset, but the first of Clark's powers are returning as well, X-ray vision and super hearing. Working together, the two superpowered individuals, Lois and Jimmy, manage to get right to the center of the complex. As the four stand there, they see something under construction that looks like a giant machine. But they are unable to investigate further, as they trip a security system, and are suddenly stormed by Lex forces. They quickly make for an escape, with Lana bringing up the rear and making sure that the others escaped. She herself was however captured by Lex super traps. With Lana gone and no damaging material that they could have taken to authorities, Clark is disillusioned. Having no super speed yet, Clark, Lois and Jimmy have to run through half the night until they manage to shake Lex's security and robots. Lana doesn't get a quiet night either. She is brought to what can only be described as a torture chamber and questioned by Lex, while her subdermal supersuit is being analyzed. Lex sees the technology in Lana as a key to his efforts to build whatever it is he is building. Thus, he doubles the efforts on extracting information from her, causing Lana to be tortured by intrusive examinations. Back in Smallville, hiding in Pete Ross' house, Clark, Lois and Jimmy are discussing what to do now. Clark has lost any hope of stopping Lex's projects before the rest of his powers return. But the others are not ready to give up yet, powers or not. After a couple of discussions and inspiring speeches, they realize what they have to do. They could not beat Lex's operation by sneaking in, not by exposing him, nor by sabotage. But they could rally the people of Smallville behind them and all together move against the villain. And who better to bring this town together than a town hero, the savior of many, high school football star, son of the man who was elected state senator and the woman who got the job in the end, Clark Kent. It takes a couple of days, but the plan works. It works better than the heroes could have hoped for. The entire town rallies behind Clark and Lois, marching to Lex's base. Lex's personnel is driven away by the sheer mass of angry people and the robots are destroyed by the farmers and mechanics of the town, with a little help from Clark's returning super strength. As the commotion begins, Lex is forced to leave his torture of Lana and the woman makes a desperate attempt to escape, taking down some guards. With the situation escalating both on the surface and in Lex's secret lab below, Luthor decides to intervene. The townsfolk is about to celebrate their victory, when the ground starts to rumble and a gigantic mechanical beast rises from beneath it. Lana down below in the lab sees it rise and tries to attack it, only to be blasted by a kryptonite laser. As the giant thing moves through the ground, some quickly modified parts on its surface, built after the analysis of Lana's suit, absorb kryptonite rock and power the thing. As it fully emerges, everyone can see what it is, a huge mech-Lex suit, armed to the teeth with kryptonite weapons. Now Clark's powers returning proves to be a bad thing. Although super strength and speed have returned, he has no way of fighting with that much kryptonite around. Everything seems to go south when suddenly other heroes appear on the scene. Chloe, who never missed anything that is going on, least of all in Smallville, had called in the entire Justice League to help out. There are the Green Arrow, Flash, Cyborg, Black Canary, and even Batman and Wonder Woman. Together with Clark and the townsfolk, they take down Lex's mech and force the billionaire to flee. Clark himself deals the final blow, when the last of his powers finally return. Lex is rescued by his chief of security and taken away from the town, while everyone is cheering over the victory. In the midst of it all, the heroes reunite, careful to make sure that they are not seen talking to Clark specifically. The only one who is absent is Lana. Now that Clark's powers have returned, she had made sure to make herself disappear again. Chloe promised to keep an eye on her though. The movie wraps up with the Justice League leaving, Clark, Lois and Jimmy saying goodbye to the townspeople and Pete organizing the rebuilding of the destroyed properties. Clark makes sure to demonstrate that all his powers had returned, and right then, he hears a call from halfway around the globe, a situation that requires Superman, and when hesitates not to take his suit back on and fly away, with the theme song sounding in the background. And that's a wrap. Let's summarize. Clark's powers get disabled in an attack by Lex Luthor. While grounded, he and Lois try to stop Lex's doings in Smallville, where he is mining kryptonite. Lana Lang appears to help them out in fighting, while Clark's powers slowly recover. She gets captured by Lex though. Our heroes then rally all the people of the town to stand up against Lex and prompt him to reveal the giant mech that he was building. Clark's powers return and along with the Justice League they take down Luthor. Please note that everything presented here is simply the results of an experiment. No part of this presentation is intended as a correction of an existing story or claims to be the real story. The selection or omission of any parts of the source material is not to be understood as commentary, positive or negative, on the original productions. These are simply thoughts and experiments based on existing material and none of it could be created without the work of all those involved in creating the original works. As with any scientific result, you may utilize any of the story ideas that resulted from these experiments for your own experiments or production, while citing this experiment as its source. It is now closing time for our lab. Goodbye until next time.